On this edition of All Angles Investigates, Nakinsky Robinson takes on an issue a lot of us have had problems with. Those extra bright lights coming from oncoming vehicles. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. Later on in the program, we'll be hearing from one of the road warriors out there, Ramon Mills. Also, Dr. Lucian Jones is with us. He's Vice Chair of the National Road Safety Council and Assistant Commissioner of Police Gary McKenzie, who is head of the police's Public Safety and Traffic Branch. But first, here's Nakinsky Robinson with blinding headlights, a glaring problem.
Glare, winces, dazzled eyes. These are some of the challenges caused by night driving. It's a story many Jamaicans who drive across the country are familiar with.
Jesus!
By day, vehicles zip through bustling towns and cities, ferrying people about their business. But at night, the ubiquitous headlights are part of a dangerous reality. Whether a major or minor road, blinding lights are hard to escape.
When I encounter the bright lights, usually I kind of lose focus on the road. That's the first experience that I get. And then when I continue driving, I start to get a headache, right? So by the time I'm home, I just feel a little disoriented. I've realized with myself that I've had some light sensitivity. So even though with my glasses, I can't drive in this bright sunlight without my sunglasses, right?
She now limits driving at nights and admits she's thought about wearing sunglasses at night to reduce glare.
What I try to do is look on my lane and beyond me, of course, and try to not focus on the oncoming traffic where there's bright lights.
Daniel and Malik are not alone. Online, hundreds of drivers rage about offending high beams and LED headlamps.
We're driving at night.
Dr. John Bullough studies lighting for the Icahn School of Medicine's Light and Health Research Center in New York. He explains that older headlights used warm white incandescent bulbs. The newer ones use a cooler LED, which stands for light-emitting diodes.
Well, that difference is very noticeable because we can see the color difference. And as it turns out, our eyes are much more sensitive to blue light than we've realized. The definition of light, even candle power, for example, has been around for 100 years, and it actually seems to underestimate our eyes' sensitivity to blue light. So even though headlights would have the same candle power, whether they're halogen or LED headlights, because they have to follow the same regulations, the bluish light is actually going to appear to our eyes to be brighter. And that actually, again, is going to, when they become uncomfortable, is going to make them even more uncomfortable.
Dr. Bullough attributes the glare and brightness to several factors, including misalignment.
So when you look at a headlight, if you park in front of a wall and shine your headlights on that wall, you'll see a bright band of light in the horizontal direction. And above that band, it should be pretty dark. The idea is when our headlights are aimed properly, the bright band of light is oriented towards the road and the dark area is aimed towards other drivers' eyes. If those headlights are misaimed too high up, that bright band of light is going to go up into other drivers' eyes. Now, again, because the bluer light is more noticeably bright, that actually compounds the problem with misaimed headlights.
Now, according to head of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch of the Police, Assistant Commissioner Gary McKenzie, this is exactly what is happening on Jamaican roads.
When you drive on the left, your left headlight should be focusing straight and downwards, and the right one slightly to the left and downwards. What we find is that the right ones are focusing straight, and in some instances, both lights are far too much upwards.
Another factor that has worsened the blinding headlights epidemic is what many do to set their vehicles apart and increase visibility at nighttime: aftermarket headlight modifications.
So this is a view of the amount of light you'll get once you have the lights on the road. There it is, you realize it bright up the entire place.
Dr. Bola also revealed this trend.
Another issue that we've noticed is in the United States, I'm not sure about other countries, is that in recent decades, we've noticed there are a lot more pickup trucks, sport utility vehicles, minivans, and these vehicles have headlights that are higher off the road than typical passenger cars. So when you take both the higher headlight height and the misaimed headlights and make those headlights bluer, you really end up having this triple whammy of brightness that affects a lot of drivers. And it seems to be a large part of what many drivers are complaining about.
He adds that LEDs have also become more accessible.
Because LEDs are more efficient than the halogen lamps that they're replacing, it becomes easy for people to buy what are called auxiliary lights that they can add onto their vehicles. And trucks especially often have many of these. You can have more lights because it doesn't draw as much power from the electrical system of the vehicle. And LEDs have dropped in cost by quite a lot, so they're not very expensive. So some drivers like to use these lights and like to use a lot of them on their vehicles.
Change the light them because me can't see at night,
Why am I changing them? Because we did let them dull. I'm not saying now we the bright light man when turn on the palm me at night, brother. You know me at the road me gone. So me upgrade myself, me bright now. I want lady said, you're bright! When it come night, me bright now. So upgrade him, brother. I don't like now work. Here, sir.
But are Paul and Tyrese, not their real names, concerned about how the lights affect other drivers?
A lot of people that talk about the bright light, man, and I love the bright light. So more time I dim me if you have it on, you know what I mean? It's too bright. I mean, you know, enough car up on the road, the light them too bright, the people them can't see. Even myself sometimes, you know, we have to cut down still, but the bright light better.
Me depend the man I tell me say, yo, come on for bright man, go on the man I dim me depend. So me concern about them, you know, but me have to concern about myself too, you understand what I say?
Dr. Bola says that these auxiliary lights should not be used on public roads.
Many times these lights say for off-road use only, but there really are very few cases where people actually, the police aren't necessarily going to notice or be able to stop every vehicle that might have an extra light on them. So it really becomes something that drivers have to police themselves in a way. And maybe as drivers, we haven't been doing a very good job of that. We want to have more light on the road to see with, but aren't paying as much attention to how much glare it might be creating for other drivers.
So why use it on Jamaican main roads?
When them turn on for them light, you can't see nothing. Me have to just look to the left and just pray that's me run over gully or them thing there, And mostly the patrol them on the road too, so you have to do upgrade my father.
I use a little hole and so on the road, so we have to even upgrade ourselves so we can see it too, you know what I mean?
The increased visibility for Paul and Tyrese could be a potentially fatal distraction for another road user. ACP Mackenzie says the police have turned their spotlight onto the growing trend of aftermarket modifications, especially in cases involving the installation of fog lights.
We have seen a substantial increase in the number of persons that we have had to prosecute. The reason for that is that there is a lack of knowledge as to how to properly manage those lights and how to install them.
Section 81.2 of the Road Traffic Regulations 2022 states that a headlamp shall emit a beam of light of sufficient power to illuminate the roadway immediately ahead of the vehicle, but shall not be of such power or design or so fitted as to cause a glare to oncoming traffic on a level road. It further states that the light towards the front of the vehicle should be white, amber, or yellow, while Section 85 tells us that the headlamp shall be fitted no less than 45 centimeters or no more than 2 meters. Failure to comply could result in a fine of up to $20,000 or 15 days in prison. Despite multiple operations over the years, clamping down on modifications remains an elusive target for the police.
Once the police are consistent, we kind of have some sort of change, but we have not been able to stamp it out completely. And whilst we have been able to deal, I believe, relatively effectively with the spot lamps, the use of the lights, the normal lights, are still a problem.
Now, after any modification, vehicles must be inspected by a certified examiner at the Island Traffic Authority, which is not currently being done. The Island Traffic Authority is responsible for annual inspection of vehicles for roadworthiness. They have the authority to instruct that vehicles with dangerous headlamps are not passed for road use. Corporate Communications and Public Relations Manager at the ITA, Dante Matthews, says drivers often find ways to cheat the inspection process.
What some motorists do, and even the motorcyclists with other defects, let's say they just renew the fitness so they know that they have it for a year. So they get the fitness, they do their alterations and everything, and then when the next year comes for them to renew the fitness, they take out all the fandangles and all the fancy things to get the fitness, and then they put back the fandangles. And so that is why the road spot checks are done, because that's where we target now the different vehicles to test to see if they're compliant with the certificate of fitness.
By the end of 2024, more than 6,630 motorists were prosecuted for having unregulated and improper modifications, a significant jump when compared with the 2,795 in 2023. The police say this is as a result of their increased efforts, but there has also been a noticeable uptick in the number of delinquent motorists. Mr. Matthews adds that hundreds of complaints about bright headlights have been made to the authority.
We have received a lot of complaints through our social media pages, via email. Sometimes persons call us to say, they have issues with drivers utilizing these bright headlights. What happens is, like, they will use the low beam, and then when they see drivers coming or other drivers coming, they'll put on the high beam, and then it causes the glare. And then motorists now who are being affected, they can't see the lane ahead. Sometimes there are potholes on the roadway, so they end up dropping into the pothole. We've received a lot of complaints, even from pedestrians sometimes, like they're trying to cross the road. But the light is shining so bright, like they maybe drop into, because pedestrians do drop into potholes too.
He revealed that during spot checks conducted along with the police,
we check the windscreen as well, because interestingly, what we have realized is that a lot of persons have these bright headlights on or put in these additional bright lights because the windscreen is so heavily tinted that they can't see. So the bright lights now, they need to put in these bright lights in order to see the way ahead. And sometimes these bright lights, the windscreen, the tint comes all the way down.
Okay, so we're going to go to the break, and when we come back, we'll be back with the conclusion of that special report by Nakinsky Robinson, blinding headlights, a glaring problem. Want your comments as well? You can post on X or hashtag is TVJ. All angles will soon come.